Thanks for having you on Early Exchange.
Yeah, thank you so much, the presenter. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
And would I say good morning to all the viewers, whatever you may be joining from, maybe your location or your time zone. I want to say a very big good morning to every one of us.
All right, to set the ball rolling, I would like you to talk about the policy and the legal framework when it comes to digital economy in Nigeria. You've been in the Nigerian space for years and you've been a global player as well. I would like you to do an assessment of the framework. Do we have the right framework in Nigeria, the right policy to support our digital economic and digital initiatives as far as Nigeria and extension Africa is concerned?
Yeah, coming from your question, whether we have the right framework or the right kind of laws or the right policies. Well, digital economy itself is evolving. You may also want to see it from the perspective that it is a convergence of all sets of digital innovation. And because it is an innovation, it's something that is continuous. What served a purpose yesteryears couldn't have served the purpose as it's today. So because it's evolving, we are also evolving with with the dynamics of the industry. And that's why, as an agency, as a government, we are concentrating on what we refer to as a developmental regulation. Now, in the sense that our regulations, our policies are out geared towards market creating. They are geared towards innovation, which, as you know, it is not static. And we also see innovation from the perspective that it is a kind of an idea that moves from its conception until the time it has impact in the society. And looking at it from that perspective, our digital space is evolving, our policy is dynamic, and our framework is also evolving. And what I can say generally is that Nigeria is in the right direction. You may want to also recognize that just 2019, the ministry that used to be Ministry of Communication was redesignated to Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. That sets a policy direction on the path that Nigeria is going towards taking advantage of what digital economy provides, which as research have shown so far, that in Africa as a whole, by 2030, digital economy could also worth close about $300 billion. But if in the policy, in the laws and the framework, Nigeria is in the right direction.
Talking about policy, in 2019, the federal government, through the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, unveiled what they call the National Strategy for for Digital Economy. I would like you to talk to us about your observation about the strategy. Are they being implemented? What state are they? And do you see it turning out to reality or making or improving the digital economy and making Nigeria one of the biggest players in the world?
I will answer that question in affirmative, yes. Nigeria, that particular policy is a progressive policy, it's a dynamic policy, and it has been implemented and is yielding a very clear result within the policy. In the last 4 years, you could see that the digital space of Nigeria itself has been expanded, and it has been very active. Only if you look at the space, if you think about the number of unicorns that Nigeria has actually produced, out of the 7 unicorns in Africa, Nigeria has already has 5 of them. That tells you that the space itself have been broadened. The kind of the burgeoning ecosystem and the dynamic tech ecosystem itself is thriving in Nigeria is also an indication that the policy is yielding a kind of a positive result. Also, the level of awareness of the use of digital technology and also the consumption pattern itself is an attestation to show that Nigeria itself is taking advantage of what the policy itself provides. Not only that, you also realize that that same policy has also given birth to a lot of other dynamic policies and frameworks. As you can remember, the Nigerian Startup Act came into existence as part of the implementation of the content and the concept of that policy. And the goal of that Nigerian Startup Act is actually to formalize the players within the ecosystem and to create a platform that will engender the use of digital technology, and the young ones, the young entrepreneurs, will have a platform to exercise and take advantage of what the digital economy itself provides in Nigeria. So if you want to ask me about the implementation of the NDEPS itself, that's the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy, the implementation has been on course, that have been yielding a fruitful result, and various departments that are within the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy itself has separate mandates through which they are implementing the various provisions of that policy. And we are making significant progress. Like, for instance, I am from one of the parastatals which were given the mandate of creating a platform that actually help the young ones to understand, to use, and to have clarity on what digital technologies is, especially in the area of digital literacy. And that has been going on. If you look at the level of awareness now, and also the number of people that have been engaged in training and in building the right kind of capacity and the talent that is required for digital economy, it is quite enormous in Nigeria as of today.
Okay, thank you so much. And you know, Femi called you a guru earlier on, so I want to pick your brains a little bit. Just before you came on board, our guest, Samuel Austin, had said that the market is huge in Africa, but Africa is being dominated by the West. I don't know if you'll agree with his sentiments, but the question now is that, how do you carve a niche for Africans in digital economy? What framework will work for Africa, for Africans, by Africans?
Yeah, how do we cover needs for Africa? It's already ongoing. Africa is actually playing a critical role in the fourth industrial revolution. As it is today, you will discover that most of the investors, especially in the digital economy space, are looking forward towards Africa. You also understand that since digital economy is synonymous also somehow with innovation, most of the Western countries are already saturated when it comes to the application and the use of digital technology. And that's why the focus today is in Africa. Not only that, you see, Africa is also creating a platform. I'm sure you must have heard about the AFITA, the African Trade Zone that have been created that will enable, Africans to take advantage of their own market. And that's why most of the developers, most of the innovators who are focused in Africa are creating African solutions. Again, Nigeria as a whole is supporting its own startup also to grow and take advantage of solving the problems that are within Africa for African solutions and providing African solutions that has a global relevance. So in that area, you discover that now I give you an instance. Our policy has one of the pillars that has to do with indigenous content development. Now, what that says that we want to see how Africans, Nigerians could, come up with solutions to their own problems that are also have a global relevance. Now, we also create platforms where all these Africans or Nigerians also congregate to share ideas. I give you an instance. For instance, every October 24th, 25th, and 26th every year, we have what we call Digital Nigeria International Conference. Now, that conference brings together all players across board within and outside Africa to share experiences and to pitch and to also bring out their solutions that have global relevance, so that those who are outside Africa could see what Nigeria is doing, and also those who want to invest in Africa will also see opportunity to invest in these young minds that are presenting their solutions within the context of such a very big conference. So also we have many other tech conferences across Nigeria, bringing in stakeholders from every other across the globe to share their own experiences. So look at what Africa is doing and also see how their solutions could have a global relevance.
So
Thank you
now
very much
let's
and
look
welcome
at
back.
digital literacy. This has been of great concern in Africa because we're trying to look at a kind of policy that is peculiar to this continent, like you said, owned or done by Africans. Now, talk to us the level of digital literacy or illiteracy in Africa, and then the right framework to be put in place by the federal government or private entities in order to ensure that digital literacy or illiteracy could be addressed.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Actually, the question is speaking to one of our strategic pillars in our strategic roadmap and action plan. We have actually come up with a plan, which is a creative implementation of the Nigerian digital economy policy and strategy. That plan is we have a strategic roadmap and action plan, which we call STRAP. And in that strategic roadmap and action plan, we have a pillar which we refer to as digital literacy. And in that particular focus area, what we have done is to come up with a national digital literacy framework. Now that creates a platform to harmonize what we may refer to as digital literacy across board. And that creates helps everyone to have a common understanding of what digital literacy means in Nigeria and what it means to every industry in Nigeria. Having said that, also we also did something on the national digital talent strategy, which is also geared towards harnessing the digital talents that are in Nigeria, so that we'll be able to take advantage of the talent gap that is already existing across the globe. As you may know, there is a report that shows that by 2030, there will be a deficit of close about 85 million digital talents. And if Nigeria is going to take advantage of that particular deficiency in the global digital talent, then we have to build our talent, we have to build our capacity, we have to train our people, and we have to get them to understand how to take advantage of this particular gap that is existing globally. So what we have done is to come up with a national digital literacy framework and also come up with a national digital talent strategy so that it will give us a direction of what we intend to achieve, of how we can realize the 95% digital literacy by 2030, which is outlined in our strategic roadmap and action plan.
All right, just to follow up with what you just said, let's take a look at some main policy objectives, right? Then I'll ask you to tell us how well Nigeria and Africa at large are doing in this regard. Encouraging the expansion of broadband services, lowering barriers for investment in broadband networks and services, encouraging public initiatives and competitive private initiatives where necessary. Also ensuring independence of regulators. How well is Nigeria doing in this regard?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. A tricky one indeed, but the question is how well Nigeria is doing. I could say in a very clear terms that Nigeria is in the right direction. Remember, we came up with a national broadband policy plan, which intend to help to mainstream the broadband usage and broadband penetration, not only within the urban city, but also in the rural area. In that area, Nigeria has been making significant progress. Now, coming to the area of independence of regulators, I want to tell you that the approach that we have adopted in Nigeria is what we refer to as co-creation. Now, we co-create regulations. We don't do an armchair regulation, or we don't develop regulation and impose it on the users. We reach out to the stakeholders and government come together to co-create a regulation that is going to be usable by the user themselves and going to be beneficial to the government. Now, one of such examples is the coming up of the Nigerian Startup Act. It was co-created. The stakeholders played a very key role in coming up with those regulations, which actually is at its implementation stage now. And another piece of regulation that have also catalyzed an industry, which as it is today, we already have what we refer to as the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. That also emanated out of one of the developmental regulations that we have also developed, which was the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. It was Nigerian Data Protection Regulation initially, but today it has translated into a new industry, creating jobs and also helping to build a new market on its own, and giving rise to a new independent agency called Nigerian Data Protection Commission. That's already functional now. So if you look at that, that tells you that the regulation that we are turning out, it is not a government-dependent regulation, but it's a regulation that is co-created with the ecosystem that helps that ecosystem to own the regulation and assist in the implementation of that regulation. So in these areas, I could tell you that Nigeria is making a significant progress.
All right, let's talk about tech dominance. Earlier, we had a discussion in that regard, looking at the level of dominance or monopoly of big tech in the digital space. Now, I would like you to talk to us if it is necessary for the federal government to put up a policy to address this, or do you think it's a reality that the industry we have to live with?
Yeah, dominance. If you talk about domination is conceptual. It depends on the understanding that we have. Now, I would say that in the area of technology, Africa as a whole we are all late arrivals. What that means is that there are solutions that have been in existence, and we become paradigmic in consuming those solutions which are already in existence. But what has happened in the last few years is that the Africans are now breaking the barrier, because digital economy has created a platform for those who didn't even have. Now, digital economy itself has created a platform for those who couldn't have done anything before now to get their ideas to become wide. So dominance, yes, it will exist, but will it continue is what time will tell, because Africans have risen up, Nigerians have risen up, and they are playing a key role within the entire global space. Remember, the value proposition for digital economy itself is the force of innovation and growth, and it creates a kind of economic and social outcomes. And because it has leveled the ground for everyone to compete favorably within the space, now the possibility of breaking through becomes higher and higher as events unfold on daily basis. So dominance, yes, dominance is there, but will it continue? It's only time can tell. But Africans and Nigerians are actually doing quite a lot, to break in that barrier and also take advantage of what the digital offering portends at this time. You know that as it is today, 60% of the youths of the population of Africa now are almost youths. And if that is the case, the same thing is prevalent in Nigeria. If that is the case, youths are the greatest consumers of this particular innovation and digital offerings, and they are also the greatest explorers within the digital offering. Going in this direction, you can only say that this issue of dominance is only a matter of time. It will change the narrative.
All right, it will change the narrative. What a good way to wrap up this interaction and conversation. Aristotle, thank you for sharing your thought with us on Early Exchange.
Thank you very much. Good to have you around. Thank you.